together with sad poems that made the spirit sink, did not forget to select poems that made the heart dance for joy. One of the poems which gave me that kind of joy was a translation of Robert Frost's The Pasture. Since it is a short poem, I will read it. The pasture. I'm going out to clean the pasture spring. I only stop to rake the leaves away and wait to watch the water clear I may. I shan't be gone long. You come too. I'm going out to fetch the little calf that's standing by the mother. It's so young, it totters when she licks it with her tongue. I shan't be gone long. You come too. I cannot adequately explain in what consists this poem's source of joy. Of course, the poem's content imparts a pleasant feeling, but in the words here used, a number of mysteries seem to lie concealed. Words that lead to delight, such as pasture, spring, leaves, water clear, and the refrain that winds up each stanza, I shan't be gone long, you come too. Some 7 or 8 years after I first read this poem, I came across it again, this time in English, in the university library. Would it have been in an anthology of American poetry? Just as it occurred to me that I had read the poem before, somewhere, I saw that the refrain in the last line of both stanzas fitted exactly over the same 2 lines in the Japanese version, which now came back to me. Robert Frost, the poet of Vermont, whose name I first learned through this poem, seemed to be calling out to me from the page. When I read the poem in English, I took even greater delight in the words, like the accumulation of liquid L sounds in clean, leaves, clear, lick, little calf, etc. Be that as it may, however, what stirred my heart with wonder and admiration, even as I read the original, were the excellence and beauty of Abe Tomoji's Japanese translation that I read so long before. At the time I read this poem, education in English was proscribed because it was the language of the enemy. I heard later that there were also certain restrictions on the books that could be carried by students leaving for the battlefront. I myself, child that I was, unequivocally thought of Britain and the United States as the enemy. The poetry of Frost and Blake, if I had realized that these poets belonged to those countries, perhaps I would have read them with some bias. In the 30s and 40s, when the world was in such an unsettled state, it was most fortunate for the children of Japan who could get these books, that there were editors who wanted them to be widely read in world literature. The people who compiled the books must have been impelled, first of all, by a desire to have children come in touch with beauty. And again, they must have wanted to incite children to ponder many things as they came deeply in touch with the sorrows and the joys of human beings. Incidentally, The books had in their first pages photographs of Japanese and world paintings and sculptures, although only in black and white. Being a child at the time, I'm not sure to what degree I was able to take in the editor's desires, but at least these books raised my imagination so that I could get a glimpse of just how other people lived in life environments different from my own. Thanks to a few books and my father's love, I was the alter ego of the boy in IBBY's poster, happily reading as he floated airily above the world's roofs. The war came to an end in August 1945. Our family stayed on in the country for a little while, and then came home to our Tokyo house, which had escaped war damage. It was already my last year of elementary school. At this point, I would like to revert to the fact that nearly all the books I have mentioned up to now were books I read in a quite unique environment during the evacuation. At that time, I had only a few books. Those books, few in number, which had come to me through the hands of adults, and were in a sense quite educational. I read with far more than usual concentration in what was a very special period. Before entering on my life as an evacuee, the relative importance of my reading was not so very great. I did not have many books of my own. I used to freely go to the fairly well-stocked bookshelves of my brother, 3 years older than myself, and pick out whatever book looked interesting. My reading ability was acquired thus, mostly through books written with young boys in mind. Stories of master swordsmen, detective stories, comics, and what were called in the Japan of those days humor novels, which were both amusing and delightful. A child starts reading, first of all, when it feels I want to read. Just like Heidi, who could not learn her letters at all under Fräulein Rottenmeier's guidance, through wanting so much to read the book Clara's grandmother had given her, and then the other additional motivation of wanting to read it to Peter's blind grandmother was soon able to read any book she liked. It is so important to familiarize oneself with the printed letter at an early age. If I had not been able to stand up to a certain amount of reading, and if I did not feel nostalgic for the books and printed word that suddenly were gone from round me, I would not have been able to add reading to my memories of my evacuation life of more than 1 year and a half. Looking back on it now, what did my childhood reading do for me? Above all,